Welcome to TLC for the Soul podcast, where soul meets spirit. You have entered into sacred space. I'm your host, Tammy Lynn Chambers, and I'm here to help you shine. Now let's get going on this podcast journey.
Hello friends, and welcome to our final installment of Hot Spice Cider, the Abigail Smile series from our Bringers of the Light series. This is just going to keep evolving, keep growing. But right now we're focused on Abigail and her adventures in the light with Dakar. And if you've been listening to the podcast for a while, this particular storyline started back in November with, I don't even remember what it was called. Whatever it was called in November. I don't know why. We just started with silly, food names that kind of pertain to the months and actually have nothing to do with the story. I'm not sure. But anyway, it all does lead to somewhere in the end, but right now it's just kind of fun. But we started in November. We carried on into December because the story kind of ran on a little bit longer than expected. And finally this morning I channeled what was the final chapter of the story. And it's so interesting because I just realized the final chapter is chapter 20, and today is December 20th, the day right before the winter solstice. It's so good. And it's I wanted to just jump right into the story. We'll first get us set up in our intentions of how we want to listen to this, how you want to listen to this. So let's do that first. Let's just take a deep breath. And I always say that your listening experience is your own. You can choose how you want to listen to this story. It is a bright, sunny, shiny day before the winter solstice. Here in the northern hemisphere, the sun, Solaris, is very bright right in front of me right now. It's quite chilly outside. I'm sitting in my favorite little spot, and you choose your experience. So if you're listening to this just to be listening to a story and listening to the ASMR, we're outdoors again. There could be little sounds around me, things that I do that cause I call it unintentional ASMR, the outdoor sounds. Then, just listen for the ASMR. For those of you that are listening for a deeper experience, those of you on an awakening or ascension path or journey, I must say that these last 3 chapters are very highly encoded activations. So if you're listening from that perspective, then you would want to set your intentions for receiving the activations that are coming through these chapters. It's funny because I will just share a little before we get into this actual story. Spirit was the other day like, you need to, because I used to, on my Instagram, TLC for the Soul, I used to do, more stuff having to do with awakening, and, I would do more channelings and more energy updates and so forth. And then I just kind of got away from that because I'm like, everybody else is doing it. What does it really matter if I do it too? It was kind of a lot of work to do it. And I felt like there was very little reward. I just didn't feel like a lot of people were, tuning into that. And I just kind of got, my motivation became lacking there. And so the other day, Spirit's like, you should write an energy update or an activation. And I was like, yeah, whatever. And I didn't really feel like doing it. And I said, no, I'm just going to write the next chapter of Abigail Smile. And I started writing the chapter, and about a paragraph into the channeling, I was like, oh, you guys are so sneaky. So Spirit had worked in a light activation into the chapter. And so I started posting the chapters on my Instagram, TLC for the Soul, because many of the folks that listen or follow over there are on that, spiritual journey path or whatever. And, they like that sort of thing. And they're there for, the activations or the light language or whatever it is. So chapter 18 was that one, which we're going to read chapters 18 through 20 here. But, and then I wrote chapter 19 yesterday and chapter 20 today. When I wrote it, I was like, holy smokes, this is like the ultimate light activation right before the solstice. I mean, I was writing it like in tears because it was so amazing and so hot. The metaphors, there's so many metaphors. So if you're into metaphors and decoding metaphors, then I definitely invite you to invite in your spirit guides, your spirit support team to sit with you as you listen to these chapters. And I used to try to decode the metaphors for you, but I'm going to just leave that up to you, because I think just like oracle and tarot readings and stuff, I could pull a card and it could have one meaning for me, but for you it could have a totally different meaning, because we're both not on the exact same journey. So I'm going to leave the metaphors up to you and your team to decode for you as they fit for you. And I may interject here and there on a couple, just because they may be more for the collective, or they may be more messages that Spirit wants you to hear and aren't necessarily ones that are up for too much interpretation. And so we'll just leave it at that. So set your intention for how you want to listen. And I will have to apologize in advance if you hear a lot of shuffling and moving around, because it seems like before every major gateway, something happened. I shouldn't put that out there, but somehow I injured myself, my hip. And so to sit still in one spot is very, very painful right now. So I'm just trying to move here and there a little bit at a time. So if you hear some shifting around, it's just me trying to get comfortable, and I apologize for that. I'm getting a big root chakra upgrade right now, and this hip is one that I've been dealing with for quite a while in terms of internal stuff. So without further ado, we are circled in love and light. I've invited in our guides. They're here with us. And we're going to get started as soon as I get my screen back on chapter 18, called What If? Now we pause for a moment to comprehend what is occurring here, because many parts are coming together to craft a most spectacular ending. But if you aren't paying attention, you may miss the best parts of all. For as Maggie Chalmers was contemplating how to get out of her darkness, Polly was planning her own intervention yet again. The bringers of the light wanted the Argyle for their own. It was to be turned back into the sacred space it once was. But often, in order to make miracles, depends on the convergence of many sources of light. And now we realize that what we should think about this is that Dakar and Abigail should be enough. They are, of course, divine counterparts, so shouldn't the stargate they create together be enough to foil dark plans? Not enough light can pass through yet. We need others to assist in this process. The light of the twins Lila and Lily and their divine DNA, the Handbook de los Santos and its sacred incantations set at just the right time, the specter and book coven gathered in sacred space, and the lady behind the curtain, so to speak, for there are other energies cheering this on. Maggie could not and would not be victorious. Dragor would be sent back to the dark side, and love light would always prevail. It would take one shining moment when the light would turn on again, and the sacred fire, water, air, and earth guardians would rise up and take control of dark forces. This, however, was not that night. Not yet. But soon, when the solstice fire ignited in a shining beacon of love light, then all would be returned to normal. Is that the happy ending you were wishing for? We hope so, because right now, Tamber and Jameson were briefing the Spectre and Book Coven on what they were to do on Solstice Eve, and the love of Abigail and Dakar was being strengthened to withhold even more light. And the creature in the box was waiting to make its debut. Pray to the light to gain its stronghold once again, and say a silent prayer for yourself, that you may, in the reading of these words, be prepared to assist the bringers of the light in bringing in the Holy Grail and the Ark of the Covenant. All will be revealed in due time as Maggie slithered down the hall to her room, Dragor chomped on an unwitting pixie, Tamber fluffed her punk rock hair in the gilded mirror, and Abigail and Dakar rested by the fire with the twins sleeping peacefully in their little twin beds. Chapter 19. The Power and the Glory. Dawn came soon enough, and the twins rose from their beds excited to start the day. The Argyle was eerily quiet, save for the sound of Collie making breakfast in the kitchen. Lila and Lily dressed in warm clothes and picked their rubber boots to wear, knowing they would be going outdoors to play and explore. That was, after all, part of why they came, to have fun and look for pixies. Lila went downstairs to see the breakfast offerings, while Lily stayed a little longer in her room to get her mind set on what she was to do next. She had been downloaded in a dream that night, and her assignment from Mistress Polly was to gain access to the hall outside of Maggie Chalmers' wing of the inn. She was to place along the hallway several strands of her hair, along with some stones and pebbles she had brought along from the island. She was to chant a little spell 3 times, and then remove herself from the house. Then she was to go into the woods where Dragor reigned his darkness, and she was to sing a very particular song. She readied herself, just as she had been taught, so that she might appear more a wisp of herself than actually a being that was fully visible. Lila, on the other hand, had a very specific set of rituals to perform that would allow her to distract anyone else that might be nosy and wondering what the girls were actually up to. She had been instructed to gather specific items from around the inn and to strategically place them in different locations. This was to both baffle and bewilder anyone who was curious enough to wonder why the other girl was not around. Both girls were anxious to eat breakfast and then get going on their tasks. They needed to complete them before nightfall, and at this time of year, that would come soon enough. Dakar woke with Abigail tucked around him. He'd had an interrupted sleep of fitful dreams filled with instruction sets from the bringers of the light. He had many strange things to do that day, one of which was to get Abigail away from the moors and into town, where he was to deliver her to a very specific old home with an ornate door. Maggie Chalmers tossed in her bed as dreams and visions of strange happenings danced before her. Her downloads were quite different, and she was confused by the one where she saw herself rising into the light, holding the Handbook de los Santos. And Melly and Dwight awoke in the town one-over in a sweet little room above the Trout and Dog pub. Melly had a strange feeling about her day, and knew she needed some coffee and fast. Everyone seemed prepped and ready for whatever major shifts and changes were coming in, even if they still couldn't see them clearly through the murky exterior. All can, would, and always would be revealed in perfect and right time. Chapter 20. Good times again at the Argyle. As Lila and Lily made their way across the moors, they couldn't help but giggle. The pixies were dancing and laughing all around them. The chores and spells of the past several days complete, and all was right again. What, you may ask, actually happened in that last 24 hours? How could all suddenly be sunshine and happiness? What happened to Maggie? Were Abigail and Dakar okay? And what about the bringers of the light? Don't you trust, dear soul? Can you believe in your heart? This is where it starts. I don't know why it starts getting emotional for me. I started crying. Don't you trust your soul? Can you believe in your heart that all rights are wronged and all wrongs are righted? Do you believe in divine intervention and miracles? If you do, then keep reading. If not, turn around and start over again at the beginning. Keep reading until you believe. Maggie Chalmers stepped out of her room at midnight. She was tired of the game, but she knew nothing else. She felt a strangeness as she made her way down the hallway. She felt something inside that was leading her elsewhere and away from the moors. She quickened her pace. Abigail took Dakar's hand as he helped her out of the car. "My love," he said, "you're needed here." He spoke lovingly as he knocked 3 times on the ornate wood door. An ancient old face appeared as the door swung open, and Abigail was greeted by the ancient being inside. "Take good care of yourselves," Dakar said, kissing Abigail. "I'll be back in the morning." Abigail waved and took the hand of the ancient one, closing the door behind them. She would have much to do here in the coming hours. Tamber and Jameson joined Dakar outside the old pub, and with the help of the pub manager, got very specific directions on how to thwart the devil of the moors. A new and most beguiling spellbook opened before them, and kept secretly hidden for so long, held the spell that would turn an old wayward soul into a bright, new, shining version of themselves. Dwight and Melly rose from their rooms and took the old jeep, heading away from town and on to what they thought would be new and better lives, away from all this mess they had gotten themselves into. Maggie walked swiftly towards the dark woods and right into Dakar. "Hello, love. We meet again," he said, clearly still beguiled by her. "Why don't we talk for a bit over here?" He motioned towards a special place where they could sit down. He had set up everything very carefully. At just the right moment, the beautiful solstice light would be exact. He would, as instructed, place his hand and hers on the Handbook de los Santos. The book would be open, and as foretold, and the ancient powers would rise between them. The clearing of anything not of the light would transform anything around it. The moment when Abigail would incant the old spells that Tamber had placed there in the house would occur at precisely the same time that the twins had been instructed to take the hand of a pixie and laugh and play, directing their loving energy and divine twin DNA towards the evil darkness that had taken over the Argyle. And in one shining moment all would be revealed. The greatest love of all would pass before them as the new light of the solstice and the great awakening of the light consciousness would arise. We are all one. We are all light. We are all love, they each encanted in their own sacred ways and spaces. No darkness can come between us. Let love, let light prevail, they each said, as the solstice light shone within and around each one. Each soul, each one was filled with a new sense of beingness, a new belonging, a new wonder of their own magnificence. Maggie could feel each and every ancient dark spell being released, being pulled away by the light that had enveloped her and Dakar. And as Dakar incanted the spell, she could feel her soul renewed within her very being. A poof of smoke went up from the woods several ways away as the darkness that was Dragor dissolved. Maggie blinked several times. She felt different. The light wasn't hurting anymore. It felt radiant. She felt radiant, reborn. "You are free now, Maggie Chalmers," Dakar said, kissing her hand. "And I am free to go now, too." He stood up from her. "Dakar," she spoke, as if waking from a dream. "Where have I been?" she asked, still perplexed about the dark night she had just experienced for what had seemed like so long. "You were just transforming, dear," he said, opening his arms to embrace her. "And now you can go and be your brightest self ever. You are free." Maggie embraced him back as the light between them became even brighter and even more shining star, divine masculine and divine feminine now rising together. Abigail smiled at the thought of it. Her and Dakar would be together again soon, and it felt like they both had done their greatest work on this day. For to bring another into the light of their own accord, and with a little help from their friends, was one of the best feelings of all. She was joyous and free, as they all were now. The darkness of the moors was gone, and the Argyle was returned to the light once again. The bringers of the light headquarters was awash with great celebration, as Polly disconnected her energy from the event. He had done it. Yes, they all had done it. A ragtag little group, the divine counterparts, the twins from the middle of nowhere, the coven, the lovers Melly and Dwight, they had all played a part in raising the vibe, and for this the world around them, all was forever changed. The light always does prevail. Blessings to you, dear reader, on your own journey. May the light of this holiday solstice miracle fill your own heart with a deeper love, light, and grace. Whoa, okay, that's all. Oh my God, so good. Oh God, so we're just all coming out of this dark night into this new energy of this amazing solstice with this second Saturn-Jupiter conjunction. There was one little riddle in here that I do want to point out as I try to get my senses back again. It was this one that says, and they're saying it's like a conundrum for each of you to kind of ponder. But it's where it says, don't you trust, dear soul? Can you believe in your heart that all rights are wronged and all wrongs are righted? Do you believe in divine intervention and miracle? And as I was writing that, I was like, what do you mean all rights are wronged? Like, I don't get that. And all wrongs are righted. And it has to do with justice and coming into divine, perfect balance. And like it says, divine intervention. And it's something for each of you to kind of think about in your own lives, if you choose to do so. You could have just been here for the story. But if you choose to do so, like, ponder what does that mean? Because for me, I am like, what does that mean? And I really, like I said, wanted to change it. I was like, are you guys really telling me this? Like, all rights are wronged and all wrongs are righted? And they just were like, it was just leave that. Leave that to really think deeply about what that means. So this ending is kind of what I was thinking might happen, but definitely not as spectacular as it came out to be, especially the fact that like for me, when I channel these, it's always the entire experience. It's not just channeling a story. It's like the story wraps around what's happening collectively and in my own life. And to get this channeling like on the day right before this solstice is to happen, and right before we know, if you're following the astrological events and what this particular solstice is all about, right before new higher light is to come in this solstice 2020 and deliver us light from the cosmos, light that we've never experienced before, revelation waves and understandings and new truths and new ways of being that are new to us on this planet, coming from, the great central suns and coming from the cosmic heart of our creator source, Mother, Father, God. And I won't get so into it because I know some people aren't here for that. But I would invite you, if you want to dive deeper into that, to continue to follow these stories, because I think they're kind of evolving as we all are evolving. And for updates or things going on in between now and the next story, I would invite you to follow me on TLC for the Soul. TLC Books is out there, but it's a lot of work to post the page a day. So I try to put them up, but I don't always get to them every day. So I'm not sure what will happen with TLC. TLC Books will remain, but I'm not sure if it's the page a days anymore. So we'll see about that. But definitely TLC for the soul. There's like a jillion posts over there. That's definitely not going anywhere. And I think as there's updates or, things going on with the podcast, I definitely also, I'm using the word definitely a lot. I post those over there as well. So I wish you all, depending on when you listen to this, it doesn't matter. You can get the activations whenever. It's not like you've missed something if you didn't listen to it like the day it was released or before the solstice, or it doesn't matter. For those of you that are here for that, you can tap into the light language and the activations from the story and from the solstice and all that, whenever. The window is the strongest between now and mid-January. So definitely take advantage of that. But even if you were like to come to this story like in 2021 December, you could still take advantage of these light code activations. So these are timeless stories, timeless messages, and all that. So I think that's all I really have to say about this one. I just wish you all beautiful, light, bright blessings, and that all your wishes and desires do come true. And I can say, and as they're saying through me now, that with all of these year-end things happening, all these astrological events, all this new light coming in, they're saying just set your sights high for 2021. Just remind yourself to believe in miracles. They obviously still occur. And for each one of you, that's going to have a different but very profound meaning, a profound sense of well-being and security and grace are going to come over you over the coming days. And what's meant for you is going to start to be revealed to you. Slowly, clarity will come, and you'll be able to see a more definitive way forward and out of that murkiness like Maggie was feeling before she met Dakar in the woods. So I love you all, and I thank you so much for listening, and we will see you again in the next episode. Take care. This podcast has been sponsored by the Fairies of Chumasha, an etheric city in 2025 full of fairies, angel witches, unicorns, and merfolk, a place where magic is very real. The Fairies of Chumasha invite you to believe in your own magic, never give up on your dreams, and always strive to be the best that you can be. Don't ever give up on yourself, and just simply believe.